We're gonna die if we get killed with the weather. We're gonna die. We're gonna freeze.
We got
90-year-old people.
It is so hard.
It feels like the apocalypse.
I've been waiting for about 4.5 hours.
You know, we go through tough times, but we bounce back.
We have hot soup, hot chocolate.
He's hoping we'll settle. Americans don't settle.
Their bet is on your cynicism. But Florida, my bet is on you and your hope.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you so much for joining us this Monday evening, November 5th. You know, we find ourselves this evening at a kind of a eerie crossroads. You have Sandy's floodwaters. They may have receded, but has left tens of thousands homeless and also cold in her wake. Meanwhile, we're only a day away from a pivotal election that could reverberate for decades to come. For the last week, we have not been talking about politics, even though for the better part of a year, it seems every night that's all we did talk about on this show, all leading up till tomorrow night. But the catastrophe that we have seen happen, and I believe the humanitarian crisis that still lies before us in this region, has been all-consuming. But like everything, politics and the world still goes on, and we have an election tomorrow. So tonight, we will talk about both. And this show will continue to talk about both issues, not just for the days, the weeks, but I believe the many months to come here. As the temperatures go down here and more people are left, certainly with still more questions than answers, well, the recovery still moves forwards, and I think more than just inching towards that, I think getting there. We have huge unresolved issues in the short and the long term, and most importantly, so many of the people in our region don't know what tomorrow will bring, let alone what roof, if any, will be over their head. So this show will continue to talk about, I believe, the two biggest issues going forward here for the indefinite future, where our region goes from here in the aftermath of Sandy and where our country goes from here with an election literally just hours away from our region, from people here getting to vote, as many in around this country have already begun. I want to begin tonight with the storm, and then we will get to the election. And I want to turn to our senior correspondent here, Andrew Whitman. He's been keeping tabs on the aftermath of Sandy, as he has with me all week long here. Let's get to those latest numbers, Andrew.
And here are the latest numbers, Rich. Sandy at this point has left at least 111 dead in her wake. New York and New Jersey had the highest number of casualties. There are still 1.9 million power outages across the U.S. tonight. That's down from more than 8.5 million at the peak of the storm. And as many as 40,000 New Yorkers have been left homeless by Sandy. In New Jersey, more than 6,000 people are living in shelters tonight. And as New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said yesterday, those numbers are likely to increase as temperatures drop.
It's starting to get cold. People are in homes that are uninhabitable. It's going to become increasingly clear that they're uninhabitable when the temperature drops and the heat doesn't go on. That's when they're going to know they are uninhabitable. People don't like to leave their homes, but the reality is going to be in the temperature. And then we're going to have tens of thousands of people who need housing solutions right away.
And if that wasn't enough, there is even more unwelcome news tonight, and it comes from the Weather Center. A nor'easter is on its way. Let's head to the Weather Center now. Meteorologist John Heyman is tracking that weather pattern for us. Good evening, John.
Yeah, Andrew, the window beginning to close now on exactly when and where that nor'easter hit, and unfortunately closing right on the tri-state area. Now, the governor mentioned the cold weather. You can see some flurries here across the Canadian border. That's all wrapping around a low pressure offshore, but it's this storm now moving out of Arkansas into Mississippi that we're so concerned about. It's going to redevelop off the South Carolina coastline, and instead of heading out to sea, well, we have an upper level low here across the Great Lakes that's going to move eastward, and you guessed it, watch the counterclockwise flow around it. It's going to pull the storm right toward the coast, so it's going to take a very similar path from Cape Hatteras right through Cape Cod off the eastern seaboard, putting us in the strong side of that storm with a gusty northeast wind, an onshore wind that's going to cause coastal flooding. It's going to cause some power outages and also some very heavy rain. But tomorrow quiet. Tomorrow's the day to prepare for this storm. Even much of Wednesday quiet. It looks like the later timing, certainly the better of the 2 here. As we work on into Wednesday evening, here come the rain bands lashing ashore right along the Jersey Shore and Long Island. Of course, the two hardest hit areas, funneling that wind down the Long Island Sound towards Staten Island. So we are concerned about coastal flooding, heavy rain, and those 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts. Any of the snow will remain well north and west again. 2 to 3 foot tidal departures and 6 to 10 foot waves will reshape the coast again, and we'll see some power outages along with that rainfall, Andrew.
All right, John Heyman, thank you very much. There is another part of the story coming out of Sandy, and that is the shortages of gasoline. Lines stretching for miles, people waiting hours to fill up. One man was arrested after he tried to cut in line at a gas station and pointed a pistol at another motorist who complained. At one point, 65% of all the gas stations in New York City, New Jersey, and Long Island had been completely shut down. That number has since decreased to 27% in New York City. The Department of Defense will also be setting up mobile fuel stations around the New York metro area to help distribute gasoline, but it'll come with a 10-gallon per person limit, but that fuel will be free. Governor Chris Christie signed an executive order over the weekend suspending restrictions in New Jersey state law that place limitations on the source of fuel that retailers are allowed to sell. New Jersey also has an odd-even restriction on sales of gasoline that remains in effect in 12 counties tonight, meaning that if you have a license plate that ends in an odd number, you can only fill up on odd-numbered days like today. If you have a license plate that ends in an even number, you can only fill up on even-numbered days like tomorrow. Rich?
All right, Andrew, let's still go around our region and give you snapshots about what's going on the ground. Now, we've been tracking Sandy from the very beginning and continue to have a lot of resources on the ground here. And we've been trying to focus on some of the hardest hit areas. And let's go first here to Staten Island, one of the most devastated communities that we've seen here across the board. Thousands and thousands of residents displaced here, many asking where they will stay here while the borough begins to try and figure out where it goes next. Samantha Liebman, she's standing by with the latest from what at least some residents there feel is New York's forgotten borough.
We're in the Midland Beach section of Staten Island, where, as you can see behind me, it is a complete disaster zone still. There's dirt and debris everywhere. People's houses were flooded. They've lost almost everything that they own, and many of these buildings have been condemned. And so there's going to be a long-term interim housing problem as shelters begin to close. Meanwhile, FEMA is here on the ground. They opened up their third disaster recovery center here in Midland Beach, but some people are saying that they're not getting any answers from FEMA.
It's very disheartening. It looks like a war zone, this neighborhood, and yes, there is resources out there, but they're not coming to us. You have to go find them.
Long term, that's being worked on, and we really would like to manage expectations.
Meanwhile, Mayor Bloomberg has appointed someone to oversee the interim housing situation as people do rebuild. I mean, there are thousands of people who have been displaced, but still no clear answers as to where they will go. That's the latest here in the Midland Beach section of Staten Island. Back to you, Rich.
Another area very hard hit, Coney Island. Our own Kim Lengel standing by with more on how the recovery efforts are going on there. Kim?
Secretary Napolitano came to speak directly to the people affected on the ground here at the Disaster Relief Center in Coney Island. She asked that the press not record any of the interactions so that her visit could be more effective. People we spoke to said they don't care who visits as long as they get power soon.
We have over 206,000 survivors in the New York, New Jersey area who have now registered with FEMA. $192 million already has been pushed out to help them with their individual needs. 9.2 million liters of water, 6.3 million meals, hundreds of thousands of blankets, with more on the way as the temperature drops.
We just all messed up over here.
How long you been in this line?
Like an hour.
What are you going to get?
They're giving us army packages of food, so that'll help a little bit.
And then how far do you have to walk at home?
What? I live all the way over on the other side. I live over there by the bay.
FEMA could not tell the folks here when the power could come back on. Obviously, that's not a federal issue, but FEMA says they are clearing as much red tape as possible and allowing for city workers to be paid by the federal government for doing work like clearing debris from roadways so that it tries to get back to a sense of normalcy here in Coney Island. We're reporting from outside the relief center in Coney Island. Kim Langle, back to you in the studio.
All right, Kim, thank you. Now, some of the basic necessities like food are still in short supply here after several days without power. Jody Goldberg went to a donation center in Wantagh out on the island where local residents, they're trying to get some relief. She filed this report.
We're here at Cedar Creek Park in Wantagh where the American Red Cross is set up and people can actually come down and get some meals and water. And these other volunteers aren't with any organization. They're members of the community who are not only distributing food and clothing, but they're also accepting them.
All disasters are terrible. All disasters are different. This one's terrible. It's huge, and I think the problem with this one is the size of it. It's affected millions of people.
I never thought, if I would have known, I would have taken my stuff out of the house ahead of time so it wouldn't have gotten ruined.
You gotta swallow your pride at this particular time. You have no power, no food, nowhere to get food, no gas to get anywhere to get food. It's difficult.
The hours of distribution for the Red Cross here at Cedar Creek Park are 10 to 1 for lunch and 4 to 7 for dinner. After that, volunteers pack up this RV and drive through neighborhoods, delivering food to those who might have missed out. They vow to come back tomorrow morning to do it all over again. In Wantagh, Jody Goldberg, FiOS 1 News.
Now, in addition to food, gas, and various shortages here and the uncertain future, people, not just on Staten Island, but a lot of the shoreline communities in New Jersey and Long Island have here. The next issue is critically going to be housing. Trust me, in the coming days here, we're going to be focused on the 30 to 40,000 people just in New York City that are wondering where they're going to call home now. With temps here, they're going to be dipping into the 20s and 30s, and of course with that nor'easter that John Heyman just told us about. All right, I want to go over to the Garden State where another problem people are running is without having power is manifesting itself in a deadly way. We saw this scene turn out today. People trying to heat their homes in any way possible, including unconventional matters, and that ended with tragedy, as I said earlier today in Jersey City. And FiOS 1's Christy Duffy is here now with more. Christy?
Right, Rich. Firefighters telling us that people are trying to heat their homes in some unconventional ways, and we're not sure if that's what led to this fire. But one man is dead here today. 4 firefighters are injured after battling the 4-alarm blaze. As you could see behind me, the shells really of 2 multi-family homes that were burnt up in this fire, which broke out around noon. Now, this neighborhood, I'm standing on Bramhall Avenue in Jersey City, they did not have power here until today, thanks to Hurricane Sandy. The power came back on right around the same time that this fire started. Now, the official cause here still under investigation, but firefighters tell us the man who died, 80-year-old Walter Highsmith, who was in a wheelchair, was using his stove to heat up his apartment just before the blaze.
The power came on when it was the fire. When the fire came, the power was on.
When the lights came on, that's when everybody said, get out, get out. Ben told them to get a homemaker for him, but they never did get a homemaker for him because he needs sometime he would let the pots burn up and smell smoke in the hallway and stuff.
It's a generator on the pole. When they turned that on, that's when the light, they was like, we got lights. They say they got lights. Next you know it was a fire. My daughter jumping out the shower, grabbed my little three-month-old grandbaby, and she ran out.
And again, now firefighters are not confirming any official cause, but they are urging people not to heat their homes in any unconventional ways. As power comes back all over the city, firefighters tell us that fires have been sparked, whether that be from wet appliances that were plugged into the wall or people running their gas. And when the power comes through, some of these fires are getting started, but none as serious as this. Live in Jersey City, I'm Christy Duffy. Back to you, Rich.
Okay, Christy. I wanted to show you some of the video that many of you are very familiar with, and I think it's going to explain why in the coming weeks after this election, this is going to occupy a lot of this program's time, in addition to what the next 4 years might look like once these elections are over. When you see snapshots of the devastation, and we've been programming here since 5 in the morning through midnight here every night since the storm, and you see the scope of the devastation. Pictures like this where Hoboken, literally a city underwater, and even though some of the waters have receded, with so many displaced people, so many people without power, so many people without knowing where they go next, children maybe finally getting back to school, but even the dislocation attached to that. And so many people here not knowing where they will call home, especially as the winter and the calendar will turn bitterly cold. I just don't want anyone out there, if you happen to be in an area that either wasn't affected too terribly, to underestimate the scope of what lies ahead for this region. And it's part of the reason why I wanted to hit this off the top. But I want to give you a couple numbers here, and then we're going to be focused on the election tomorrow night after this break. Now, if you're in need of assistance in the aftermath of Sandy, you can call one of the numbers that are now on your screen. FEMA, toll-free number, 800-621-FEMA. You can also call your local disaster release offices, also numbers posted right there in the graphic in front of you. And we're also streaming some of this information as well in a ticker that you'll see throughout the program in the lower third. Now, this is a key point here. Things are going to be bad, and one of the ways that, if any way, it can be helped at all is if we're part of the solution, not part of the problem. I'm talking about some of us fortunate enough that we still have homes here and a little bit of certainty in our lives. If you can help, whether it's a donation that you can text the Red Cross at the number you see there on the screen, or the good folks at Island Harvest, for that matter, any food shelters near you, please do so. The United Way, we've also listed their site there in the Garden Service. You see the number there that you can also volunteer to help out at nycservice.org as well. But if you can help out in volunteering efforts or in donations, it will go a very long way. As they say, without belaboring an expression, the only way we're going to make it through this is if we as a community, and by that I mean as a region, will pull together. All right, we take a break. But when we come back, we're going to focus on the election and also how the storm has impacted the election both immediately and even on a national level. We focus on the election of tomorrow right after this.